Halloween.
Forever.
Part 2.
All right, Steve, let's get in. Let's jump into 1984 Toxic Avenger, Trauma Classic.
Yes, all the way back to the year 1984, when you could still say slurs and nobody would get mad at you.
When there was so many people, it was okay to say terrible things about and portray in a very offensive way.
But, I mean, even as strong as, like, a lot of the language is, as a lot, you know, as unacceptable as it is, it's mostly kept to the villains because, you know, they're villains. They're supposed to be that way. The other is supposed to be, you know, like it's slapsticky. You're not supposed to really take them seriously.
It doesn't. It's weird because if you would read the script, you'll be like, you know, that's not going to eat well.
Boy.
But it never feels. It never feels mean-spirited. Is that an okay thing to say? I don't know. It just never feels like it's out to hurt anybody. It's just the trauma. But you have to also understand trauma, right? You have to have seen some trauma movies and understand that trauma's whole shtick in the 80s, 90s, and even today, their whole shtick is we want to upset people. People who don't get what we do, we want to upset them. And the people who get what we do won't be upset. They'll understand that it comes from a place of just trying to rattle cages and not actually be hateful or derogatory or whatever.
Yeah. I mean, it is shock value stuff, right? That's why it's there. It's there to be shocking.
Right.
You know, and that's, you you flash forward a bit and that's, you know, the same world that gives us James Gunn.
Mm-hmm. Right, exactly.
You know, who's a little toned down, you know, versus the 80s version of Trauma.
Sure.
Yeah.
I mean, it gives us James Gunn. It gives us Eli Roth. This film gives us Marissa Tomei. So
it does. And she was like, wasn't she like 17 or 18 or something? She was like
something like that. Yeah. Yeah. Very young.
That's the other thing that feels just grimy about this movie and a lot of trauma movies is obviously and there's more problematic things about trauma to like dig into if you really want to. But the thing about it is like, it just feels so grimy and slapped together. And it like, there are tons of people in the movie who like, I don't think knew they were in the movie, you know, and there's a lot of just children like, oh, that's my buddy's kids. Have them sit on a step and say something stupid. And we'll like, you know, act like they're in danger or something. It's so weird.
Yeah. I think it's fair to say that the performances in this movie are uneven. Some people clearly understand what they're doing, others not so much, and some are just bad actors.
Yes, I mean, some of them are non-actors. I would say even it's like there is a significant amount of people on screen who are not actors and never have been and never should be.
Yeah, but there's a lot of great performances in it too, right? I mean, There's a lot of fun characters in this movie.
There's a lot of high energy performances, I'll say. There are a lot of trauma performances, I'll say, which is a specific type of good. You know, like it wouldn't go in other places.
A lot of boobs, too. Big plus there.
Also, a very hallmark of trauma.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. I think I'd seen this the first time. I think I saw like the TV edit. And then
30 minutes.
Wasn't a huge fan. I mean, there's got to be a TV edit this somewhere, right? I feel like I saw this like on USA Up All Night or something at some point.
Well, that was the first time I saw this was USA Up All Night with Rhonda Shear, for sure, the first time I saw it.
Yeah.
I don't know how edited it was because they would show a lot of things on that. So I don't really know. If anything, I feel like a lot of that stuff would have been cut for time.
Yeah, I think a lot of the gore is still intact on those USA Up All Nights, because I also remember watching Toxie 3, The Last Temptation of Toxie. So like, and it was mostly intact there. It's just mostly, I even think they didn't cut out the nudity, they just blurred it back in those days.
They would just like zoom in on the face. They would crop it. Exactly.
Yeah, like in the scene where Melvin comes upon the couple Slug and his girl, and they're on the bench in the locker room.
Mm-hmm.
And she pulls out the knife and she's like, "I'll get out of here or I'll kill you." You know,
the way she says it is so wild.
It's so great. That's such a great line delivery. But that was more punched in to hide her boobs, you know, in the edits back in the day. So,
And I was going to say the 80s boobs hit different. That was refreshing.
Me too.
Just quick thing here, you know, so out of the 3 movies we're talking about here tonight, between Toxic Avenger and You're Next, we have 2 movies that have girlfriends that get weirdly turned on by murder. And we also have 2 films that give us boobs in the first like 5-10 minutes.
Right. That's important.
So points to You're Next and the Toxic Avenger.
I'm at a disadvantage already. Yeah.
Yeah. Your boobs are lacking.
Plenty of disappointing dick, though.
I was going to say, how much dick did you guys have? Because
I mean, I have a couple gay guys in Speedos, which is, you know, it's close. So
they're not hanging dong though.
I think Toxie's packing though.
Yeah, Toxie's packing from Sarah's expression. But let's do a little high level cursory overview of the film. It's the Toxic Avenger. I don't know how you don't know about this, but if for some reason you've been living under a rock, or maybe you're just a baby, I don't know. But the Toxic Avenger was one of the original just kind of franchises out of Troma. They had done some films before this, and it was mostly like slapsticky sex comedies. But this was kind of their first real venture into the hyper gore and, you know, the mixing with the slapstick. And it was pretty much like it was a hero film. There's some history somewhere between Lloyd Kaufman and Stan Lee, because he has Stan Lee's voiceover for the Citizen Toxie film, Part 4. So I think they have like some history together. There's also history between Lloyd Kaufman and Mel Brooks, which is why it's so like there's so much comedy focus. So I think they all have like kind of a back from the 70s and 80s. They just kind of knew each other, you know, in the New York artistic scene, I think.
Did Kaufman have any relationship with Corman?
I don't believe Kaufman and Corman ever really crossed paths that much. Because
I'm really shocked by that.
Yeah, Corman was so much like West Coast.
Yeah, he's West Coast guy. I just didn't know if they ever like, because to me they're kind of like 2 sides of the same coin, right?
Right.
Just on the different coasts. Yeah.
I think it's more of like, because Corman was more West Coast, and he's also more involved as being a producer and just trying to put things out there. And taking advantage of the Hollywood system, whereas Kaufman is much more about not even being a part of the Hollywood system.
Yeah, just being an indie filmmaker.
Yeah, like he loves just not even being a part of it and just always running down. Like if you follow him on Twitter, he's always just running down, you know, the Producers Guild or any kind of guild. He just fuck everybody. He hates them all.
Well, his whole thing is like, also like Corman, you always got the idea that Corman played nicely with others. He would come in and do things cheap and dirty and like glom onto productions that were already happening. And it's like, hey, you have a couple days down. I can come in, you know, I'll pay you X amount of money, and then I can, you know, use some of your set pieces or whatever to shoot this little low budget thing. Yeah. Lloyd Kaufman didn't play ball, you know, at all in that way. He would be like, no, fuck you. We're doing it ourselves. You know, he was very, like, what's the word I'm looking for? He was always starting shit with people, you know?
Well, I mean, yeah, he's a shit stirrer. He's, you know, you can call him a raconteur if you want. I don't care.
Yeah.
You know, he also is just very much, like they did things, especially back in this time, they did things kind of guerrilla style. You know, not every scene that you see is something that was approved, you know, something that they just, you know, they just did. And
there was
they
not
took
permits for all this stuff. Yeah.
There's not a lot of permits going around. There's some permits, you know, like some of the car crashes, you need permits for that. And
I don't think he was just running shit off the side of building or off of you know, hillsides and stuff. But it's like he also has just a generally more like subversive slant to his movies as well,
right?
Compared to Corman, which were just, you know, they were like low budget versions of, he was trying to do something similar to, Hollywood production, just on a much lower budget. There's very little in the way of Troma that would ever be confused with a Hollywood type movie. They're
Right.
much more subversive type of flicks.
Yeah. And it's because of that subversiveness that we see, they go to all these extreme lengths, especially with the violence, but like the dialogue is silly, but also in that you get like, you I don't want to say weird inclusiveness, but it's an uncommon inclusiveness because they'll literally put anybody on screen. It's not a thing of like, we're here to check boxes. We're just accepting whoever wants to be a part of the filmmaking process. And it's not like, oh, we need to have, X and X type of actors on screen. It's like, no, you see later on, they have the Mrs. Haskell character. She's just introduced out of nowhere, but she's just an actress that was willing to do the role. And she also kind of fit what they needed of somebody who could fit in a dryer. She's a smaller lady, and they're like, well, we want to stick somebody in a dryer.
He also would, Lloyd Kaufman notoriously didn't want to pay people. Like he would a lot of times use students and for that reason, he could probably be accused of being a little bit predatory in the way he was, dealing with, people he was relying on, and putting people in uncomfortable positions and stuff like that. But like when he's basically like, you're essentially a volunteer here, then it's easy to just kind of call, naivete when it comes to those sorts of things.
Right.
You're like, hey, we're just a bunch of wild and crazy kids here. Whereas Corman, like, at least I think had some semblance of professionalism.
Yeah, Corman had some professionalism, and he would do his best to not have just a bunch of extras running the fuck around. Like, Kaufman will put a bunch of extras on screen and not pay them, just so they can say they were in a movie. He doesn't give a shit about that. But you get, overall, it does feel less professional, but you just get like a great amount of bits and silliness, and you see a lot of things that you're not going to see in other films.
I will say this. My one big knock on the movie is the uneven sound mixing, especially with Toxie's voice. I think this movie, I saw it when I was younger, edited on TV, and I was like, okay, I've seen Toxic Avenger. It's okay. Not a huge fan. And then watching it, I've seen it a couple times now because it's been on Tubi. Hail Tubi. Where's those Tubi bucks? Hook us up. But it's like, dude, that just seems really amateurish. And I did not watch a lot of Troma films, but I'm like, how did anyone think that's okay? Like, if they just blended that in a little bit better and it wasn't so noticeable, I think it would not take you out of the movie.
Yeah.
As much.
And it's always down to what they're willing to spend to get something completed. Because it's
dollars.
I'm a big sound design guy, and I'll never defend Troma sound design. Troma sound design is wretched a lot of the time.
And to quote Captain Cash and Harrison Ford, hey kid, ain't that kind of movie,
Yeah, exactly.
I get it, but it's so bad. It's like, that's actually jarring.
And there's a couple things, aside from, tits and transgressive humor and stuff like that. The other thing you're going to get a tremendous amount in Troma movies is screaming. There's always going to be so much screaming. And I feel like they just turned everything down because they're like, we're never going to get our levels right. We're half these people aren't even wearing microphones. We just have to, let's just keep it kind of low. And so we don't just spike it every time someone screams, and then we'll do some voiceovers where we need to. It's just, there's always so much. It's just a cacophony of screaming during certain scenes and signs. I always love how much Uncle Lloyd, he won't pay his actors, but he will pay for a custom sign He's a big sign guy.
Let everybody know that you're in Tromaville. You're at the Tromaville Health Club.
Yeah. He will pay for 40 brand new hand painted signs in every movie. Yeah. I always crack up with that.
It's a cheap way to communicate vital information in the film.
Yeah.
Yes.
He'll convert an entire old Burger King into a KFC, whatever it was in Poultrygeist. He'll do all the branding for that. But fuck actors. they're greedy and needy.
The Mexican restaurant they shot the Mexican restaurant fight scene in is now Popeyes.
Oh,
no shit. I was interested to see if it was still there. That is such a bonker scene. I'm going to stop talking because I can't wait to get to that. But it's so fucking wild.
Yeah. So let's get into it. So like I was saying, it's a simple setup, and like I was getting to about like how Lloyd has a connection to Stan Lee. It's very obvious Lloyd is biting off of Stan Lee's kind of hero creation process. Especially Spider-Man is what this is you have a fucking nerd who becomes a superhero. And in that, the superhero is super violent. And I believe it's in the later films that you learn that it's his literal atomic chromaton structure that is drawn to defeating evil. So he's ultimately a force for good always, because he never hurts anybody who isn't bad. It's just always going to be a bad person. Mm-hmm. At the same time, he's also, while he's killing gang members, he's also taking the revenge on the people who hurt him, as his weak, wimpy Melvin Ferd -- Junko self. And it leads to hijinks and slapstick. But we start we have the Tromaville Health Club is where we start. And we get a lot of exercising, a lot of hot exercising.
A lot of boobs, a lot of butts.
So this is definitely the first warning that we should all be concerned about the Jersey Shore culture of gym, tan, laundry.
Sure. Yeah.
This movie sets that up. I'm like, oh my God, Lloyd Kaufman tried to warn us about this in 1984. 20 years before, plus years before we got the Jersey Shore, monsters. Like he knew. He knew.
Yeah.
He knew. I mean, he even knew in naming two of the head antagonists with basic Jersey Shore names like Bozo and Slug. You would see them on the Jersey Shore.
Yeah. Is that any different than JWoww and Snooki?
No, it's not. Bozo, Slug, JWoww, and Snooki. They all go together.
Sounds totally fine. Like if you said that and I wasn't paying 100% attention, and Dina, I seriously wouldn't even bat an eye. Just be like, oh yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. But we also get introduced to Melvin Ferd, and he's, the mop boy of the Tromaville Health Club. His job is to go around mopping up jizz and poop and whatever else is on the ground.
There's so many fluids all over this place. It's unbelievable.
Yeah. It's so wet.
I'm not comfortable with the way Brian said fluids.
There's so much fluids. It made me
deeply uncomfortable.
So many fluids.
Oh my.
Yeah.
Assorted fluids.
Assorted fluids. Yeah, everything looks moist in this health club. Yeah. Like the plaster has got to be having water damage constantly because of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they probably got some kind of HVAC issue there. They need some better ventilation. They get some air moving through there.
Yeah, nothing's drying up. That place is mildew and cum and sweat. That is everything in there.
For a moment, I thought you were spelling HPV problem, which they also probably have.
They're also, Jersey
that's probably
Shore
on the toilet seats.
Yeah.
There's also an HPV problem. But Melvin is making his way in the world, trying to, scam on hot ladies. And he's getting bullied by by Bozo and Slug and their girlfriends because he dunks his dirty ass mop in their hot tub while they're trying to have a soak.
Well, here's the thing. Melvin sucks. This is the thing is he's not just this lovable nerd that's just being picked on, by these psychopaths, which, and the antagonists here we'll learn about in a second, I'm sure, are full on psychopaths of the most insane degree. They are literally right beside the acid sex bikers in my movie. They are right beside them in terms of how evil they are. But Melvin legit sucks. So,
Yeah.
You know, if we were doing this movie on Hops and box office flops, my one sentence description would be Forrest Gump gets superpowers and goes on a murderous rampage. But that's probably giving too much credit to the character Melvin, because he's not nearly as likable as Forrest Gump. He is just kind of a goober, in the worst way possible.
He's such an annoying dork, and you do want to push him down the stairs.
Sure.
Yeah, they don't really do
and
much
inconsiderate and kind of a little bit of an asshole himself.
You know, I think I understand why they did that, because it actually makes the bad guys even more evil, because he is truly just hapless, right?
Yeah.
Like, he's not even really he's not able to try, really. Mm-hmm. He's incapable of being successful whatever he's trying to do, because he's such a oddball character. So that kind of takes away from his arc, but it does make the villains even worse, because it's like, I mean, if they were just being cruel to be cruel because the guy was trying, somehow that's like, more 80s movie relatable. But the fact they're basically picking on a kid that seems to be like developmentally disabled is kind of, that actually makes them even worse.
Yeah,
right?
it does. It does make them worse, because it's not, because like you're saying, in Revenge of the Nerds have their own thing. Like they're capable. Yeah. They're capable in some way. They're just not sports acclimated or anything like that. So right. They're getting bullied for that. Melvin has nothing. That's why he's a fucking mop boy. It's not like he's not smart. He's just a complete, absolute hapless tool.
Yeah. He's not Goodwill Hunting in that gym.
No, absolutely not. He's not solving math elsewise. He doesn't turn into a math hero either. He just gets big and ugly.
Well, it is something you come to expect in trauma movies, where it is quite often the case that there ends up being zero redeemable characters. Like, that is a trauma normal thing. Like, even the best character is an enormous piece of shit who deserves to die, probably. Like, you know what I mean? Like, trauma, just, you can go through whole movies with no redeeming characters.
Yeah, I think there's plenty. I think there's plenty of redeeming characters in this. You have Sarah, who becomes Toxie's girlfriend.
Sarah, perhaps the only one.
Yeah, she goes from a victim to, actually just being the only person to love Melvin and actually care about him, even when his own mom rejects him at first. Mm-hmm. But, his mom comes around. You could, the kids are basically
the kid who gets
innocent.
His head squished. Yeah, of course, but he's not even a character. He's just a dummy who gets his head squished.
I wasn't actually talking about that kid. I was talking about the kids who wear the I Love the Monster Hero t-shirt.
Yeah, I'm with you, Steve. I'm with you. I picked up what you're putting down.
They're just extras. They're not even characters. Well, I guess there are like the kids who go, and like the kid who has the little paper hat on, and they're always like
the burger
talking,
joint kid.
they're eating ice cream and going like, well, we got to do something and help Toxie. Like, yeah.
Yeah. And then you have the one police officer who goes against the wishes of the mayor and the other police
force. You're right.
Force.
Yeah, there is him too.
So there you got like three.
O'Malley?
Yeah, I think it's O'Clancy.
He's always got like 4 buttons undone. Like, you could almost see his belly button.
He doesn't
like,
fit his shirt. None of the cops really seem to fit their shirts, actually.
No.
And I wouldn't be surprised if they were all just sharing shirts. If you're like not on screen, take that cop shirt off. It's got to go to somebody else.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. But yeah, so we get this early setup of how Melvin is, just picked on by these bullies. And then the next scene we get is what Brian was talking about, of these bullies just being actual, psychosexual maniacs, and that they love to do a Death Race 2000 on the streets of Tromaville, running around, running people down. And they have, a point scoring system for the people they run down. And the girls are getting horny about it, and then they take pictures after they run this kid down. Like, he's a 12-year-old kid, except for when he gets hit by the car, then he's a 30-year-old stuntman. But then he goes back to being a 12-year-old kid, and it's one of the most brutal head squishes that you ever get.
But I mean, considering this movie was made for $5 and like a couple of Whoppers. Like, that's a sweet stunt when they smoke the guy on the bike. Because it's like no cutaways, no edits there. Just rolls over the top of a car, and that is a high quality, head smash.
Yeah.
Like it's
and the head smash was literally just a cantaloupe. It was like a cantaloupe with a wig on. Like that's basically what they did, and they did a really nice job
effective.
with it. Yeah.
You know, again, no cutaways, no CGI, kids. Yep. This is just like, we're going to put a wig on a melon, pump it full of corn syrup, and run it over, and it's going to look gnarly. And it did.
And it did. And that's most of the effects in this is like they're all practical. Obviously, they have to be.
It's all bladder effects or fruit.
Bladder effects and fruit are doing a lot of heavy lifting.
The character that you mentioned, Bozo, who's just a wild character.
Yeah, he's
played by a guy named Gary Schneider, who has only, I think, has like 3 or 4 acting credits, and they're all trauma. He was in Class of Nukem High is probably his most. This and Class of Nukem High are like his 2 most famous ones by far, and that's like the only thing I've ever seen him in. But when I think of trauma, he is who I think of because he is just constantly screaming, veins popping out of his neck. Like he has one speed and it's 1,000 miles an hour.
Yes.
Yeah.
And he plays essentially the same character in Class of Nukem High, just like a psychotic teen murderer who's just on bath salts 100% of the time.
The biggest shock to me, looking up the details on this movie, is the fact that guy didn't have more of a career.
Yeah.
Because I'm not saying his performance is like very refined in this movie, but the dude understood the assignment and like he performed. I'm like, wow, I thought the guy going to do stuff, but he didn't. I was not many people from this film have, other than Marissa Tomei. Honestly, most everybody in this has either just been in other trauma films or the Toxic sequels,
right?
For the most part,
and that's, I mean, that's kind of the thing that they keep going, is just an ever replenishing cycle of people who are disillusioned by the film process because they did a trauma film. Like, you do a trauma film, you don't get paid, you work terrible hours, and you go, oh, I never want to do this again. Then,
or like you've already burned so many bridges in the legitimate film world that the only person that'll hire you is Lloyd Kaufman.
Or you're just literally that untalented, but you just thought it'd be fun to do for a weekend. Like I would say even nowadays, when they make a film, I would say the majority of the people who show up are just fans of the film. Like they know they're not going to, the reputation has been there for so long. People who just show up are just like volunteers and they just want to, make a trauma film. They want to have fun. They want to have the experience. They're not looking to be famous or anything like that. But it, trauma still turns out people who do eventually go on to do something, because like we already mentioned, James Gunn, there's another filmmaker, Trent Haga, who's like all over the independent scene, who's done a lot of stuff and a lot of fun things. But it's a kind of a give and take. You can find you can find plenty of like listicles. Vincent D'Onofrio is in Trauma's War, isn't it?
Yeah. I think
Kevin Costner was in Surf Nazis Must Die. So like,
D'Onofrio initially was in talks to play Bozo.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I could see that because he can be really
he did not
big,
like the role, so he passed.
Yeah, it's a rough role. It's
you know what? So just to harken back to a movie we did on Hops Box Office Flops, gotta get the plugs in. That I was not expecting to see D'Onofrio in was Stuart Smalley Saves His Family, the Al Franken movie.
Yeah,
which is horrible.
Yeah, it's just good.
Unbelievably bad. Hard to find too.
For good reason. It's a piece of shit.
Vincent D'Onofrio plays his brother in that film, and like almost unrecognizable because at this point the only thing I would have had reference for him would have been Full Metal Jacket, and he looks nothing like Private Pile, and his performance is nothing like that. And he's actually a really good actor in that terrible movie.
Well, he's a really good actor anytime.
Yeah, he is, right? I'm like, it shows in that shitty movie, Vinny D shines.
I didn't even realize that character had, and I was like a big SNL fan, as a kid and up and, still, I mean, I don't really watch that much anymore, but I'm a huge, SNL fan overall. And I did not know that character had a movie.
Yeah, he does. It's bad. And yeah. Check out that pod. It's worth listening to because we have a lot of fun. But anyway, moving on. Yeah.
Moving on. After we get the great cantaloupe head crush, this is where we get Melvin's transformation into the Toxic Avenger, which is built on like a couple of great set pieces. This is like the best of the budget, I would say, in this film before we get to the car crashes. Is the scene you have Melvin and Julie in the locker room, and she convinces Melvin, hey, if you come over into the poolside, I'll do a little blah, blah, blah with you. And he's like, oh, really? So, it's tricking the nerd to think he's going to get, a little pussy, which it happens.
And she's a fox.
Yeah, it's classic bullying. It happens. Yeah. You have to love, after he puts the tutu and the spandex suit on, his little confident strut with the mop. It's just a quick 3 seconds.
He's a good physical performer.
Yeah, he does a little jig.
Yeah.
I think he's the OG Napoleon Dynamite. Let's be honest.
Well, sure. He's got such a good, he always looks like he's going to fall down. Always. So he's got this weird Buster Keaton-y, I'm always slipping and falling. I'm constantly in a state of slipping and falling. He's a pretty good physical performer.
Yeah. So,
he's gone on to do nothing else. Zero, just other trauma stuff or trauma stuff. I mean,
he's in a lot of things, but just independent schlock. It's just people who are fans of the Toxic Avenger hiring him to come on and do bit parts in their film.
I think he was also the janitor in Class of Nukem High, right?
Was he? I didn't even remember that.
Yeah.
He's the janitor.
Which again, which is another gag, right? Because
he's the janitor in the Return to Nukem High, which is something that was newer. It's from 2017.
Yeah, got it.
So it was just him. That. Yeah, it was just him coming back to do a bit part.
That's kind of like having Freddy being the janitor in Scream.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Yeah, because after the Toxic Avenger, he doesn't do anything until Toxic Avenger 4 in 2000. Where he comes back as himself, as Melvin. So
evil Melvin.
Yeah, evil Melvin. And then he gets hired to do a bunch of bit parts in other people's films because they're like, oh yeah, he's out there again. We can get him.
Again, to my point, that physical comedy angle, I'm surprised that guy wasn't in more slapstick comedies in the 80s.
Yeah. I mean, again, also this stuff's being filmed in New York and New Jersey. How many people would just have to go back to their day job? If you don't hit huge, you're not gonna be able to quit your day job and go out and into the world. This is just an opportunity to get your name out there, possibly, maybe. It's a lot. And back to Brian's original point of Kaufman being somewhat predatory, it kind of is because it's taking on people's desires to be famous or be an actor, and you just see a movie and sign up for it and you hope for the best. So in the scene, they turn the lights out on Melvin and it comes back on and he's kissing a sheep. More classic bullying. And then they all chase him. Bunch of guys in mustaches with no shirts chase him, and he falls out a window to where an awaiting toxic waste dump truck has parked itself because the drivers want to do blow.
Okay, so now again, 2 of the 3 movies we're talking about tonight involve giant piles of blow.
Yes, lots of blow. They're just, they're going whole face into a baggie, so good amount of blow. Probably one of the most famous stunt jumps, because I remember seeing it not even in the context of Toxic Avenger. I think I've seen it it was used as cutaways in cartoons in the 90s, I think, as just something funny to put in. But he dives through the window, lands in a barrel of toxic waste, and then you get a couple great burn effects, which is what I was really trying to get to of this, is the cop setting his hands on fire.
Hold on. Let me jump in again here and say, now again, 2 of the 3 movies we're doing tonight involve our protagonist jumping out of a window at height.
That's true. Yeah.
Weird.
Also happens.
Boobs,
Also happens in your next.
Blow, windows.
But yeah, he jumps through the window and then it's covered in toxic waste. The cop, a cop runs up and tries to help him. He gets his hand set on fire in a great practical effect because it looks like he's just holding fucking accelerant in his hands.
Yeah, like, that's all that's happening. Yeah.
And then they do a full body burn of somebody just running down the street, and in perfect Troma faction, they've lined the street with people who just want to see somebody set on fire.
Who doesn't love a full body burn, right? That always rules.
Well,
which
it's
also
a pretty
happens in
long
Mandy.
one too. Yeah, that's true too. This one's a pretty long one, and you could tell there's just a bunch of townies just hanging out on the side of the, like on the sidewalk. They're like, oh shit,
that dude's totally on fire. Whoa.
Like 15 minutes before it happened, somebody walked into the Ace Hardware and said, "Hey, everybody, we're shooting a movie on the street. Do you want to see somebody set on fire?" And everybody in the Ace Hardware said, "I don't got much going on at the moment." Yeah,
yeah, hell yeah, I do.
Yeah. Melvin runs off, and then he runs back home, and he's transformed into the Toxic Avenger. We get his a lot of great bladder effects in this scene, and it's a pretty solid transformation, even by Troma standards.
Yeah, like I would say solid is maybe a strong word. They are in fact bladder effects. I wouldn't call them solid, but it looks like they put a bladder, taped it to their arm, and then painted over it. But you get the idea. They're trying their, but he's in a gross tub full of guck. It's definitely got that, like, there were ones before, and well, no, let me see. When was Street Trash? Street Trash is later.
I think that's 87.
Yeah. So this is like a proto melt movie, right? A little bit like some of the other melt movies that kind of are in that subgenre. Slime City and all that stuff happened a little after. So
Melting Man.
Yeah. So this is a bit of a precursor to some of those that subgenre, perhaps.
Yeah, I mean, Slime City is a direct result of Troma because the director of Slime City worked on the Class of Nukem High in 86 and then went on to make Slime City the following year. So yeah, a lot of this stuff is like a lot of proto effects, but like I'm saying, 484 with a small budget, it's pretty damn good.
Yeah, I think they probably could have tightened it up a bit. I think it drug on a bit. Because I think we saw the same things a couple of times, like show us once and then like just get on with it. Because you're going to see, again, the budget wasn't going to let him do a whole lot.
Well, Lloyd is always going to the scenes that have the money behind them. You're going to see a lot of it. Yeah, like it's not going. If he's spending money on something, it's going to be on screen for about 45 seconds at least. Jennifer,
which is the same as Roger Corman. If Corman spends money on something, you're going to see all of it.
If there's a costume, if there's a set piece, if there's some practical effects, get ready to see it. Yeah. And it potentially is going to lose its edge a little bit because you're going to see a lot of it. But
I got a question about that. I'll bring it up later.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say Jennifer Asperall. I don't know, this might be where you're going, but Jennifer Asperall, who did the special effects makeup in this, coincidentally was also around this time shooting the special effects for Spookies, which is underappreciated bonkers movie in terms of special effects. The plot's completely nonsensical, and the movie was essentially like multiple movies that were spliced together. It's doesn't make any sense. But then she went on to have a fucking crazy career. Like she's maybe been one of the most like long running, special makeup effects folks in Hollywood. Like she's had a tremendous career.
Yeah. She has a huge career, and like, just as like a credit to throw out there, she was on the Westworld remake TV show,
the HBO show.
She was on the HBO show doing the makeup effects on that. So like she's had a long career. There's somebody else that had a long career, and I'll get to him when we get to the scene he's in. But Yeah, after Toxie's transformation, you basically just get a lot of bits. Like the film is Toxie, running around, righting wrongs, but also committing revenge. He's killing, everybody who was like the four main antagonists that we've already learned about them. Like he's killing them in their own special little scenes. Yeah. And you also have like this B plot of the mayor, who's just like, the mayor rules. Like
he's so funny. All the politicians, the local politicians, they're all so funny.
Yeah,
that's the best ensemble of actors in the film. That group of guys together.
Yeah, because they're all sleaze.
All of those scenes work, and they're great.
Yeah, but like the mayor is just this big fat sweaty guy, and he's always just like, when we see him doing his dirt, he's doing it at the Tromaville Health Club. He's laying on a massage table, eating a hoagie.
A big ass hoagie.
Yeah. That guy fucking rules.
Getting a massage. And he's so funny. And he's a Troma stander too. Like you see him a lot in Troma films, I believe too, right?
But for a bit, he's in Class of Nukem High, and then he's also in Street Trash.
Oh, okay. Maybe that's what I remember.
Yeah, after Street Trash, he only does Mannequin, and then he doesn't really do anything after that.
He died at 44.
Yeah, he died in 1991 is what it died.
Well, there you go. Yeah, his obviously, but
which is kind of a bummer.
He's so funny. Like there's one scene where the guy sitting beside him, like passed out or whatever. He's like, was this guy fucking dead? Like he just does little lines. So just like a great like New York scumbag type of character.
Yeah, because they just have like a bunch of hookers dancing around, and his his confidant can't believe that they're just so full of hookers and blow. He's at Toys R Us, and for the first time he just had his mind blown. Mm-hmm. But the one scene that really stands out, and we've danced around it, is it's a Mexican fast food restaurant fight scene. Mm-hmm. And this is one of the more infamous scenes of the entire film after the head squish. But you have a gang of just indeterminate, like we don't know how they're a gang, but they have face paint. That's what makes them a gang.
Somebody watched The Warriors the night before.
Exactly.
Oh, the one kid was straight Warriors ripoff. Yeah.
Yeah. One guy's the Warriors. The other guy is just, like kind of an army vet. And then we have Rico, which Rico is my favorite in this scene.
Rico's just a fucking ninja. He's just a white ninja.
Let's point out, this is a Mexican restaurant with samurai swords on the wall.
Yes.
Which comes out handy in the end.
They had to be there. Yeah, it's a Mexican restaurant with no actual Mexican employees. So it's basically like a Taco Bell. Yeah. And it just, you have this gang come in and they hold everybody up and they're pointing shotguns in people's faces. They point a shotgun at a baby, which is like, it seems wildly dangerous. I wrote that down.
I said
it's a real human baby, an actual child. Like
the only CGI, movie I can think of where a shotgun is pointed at a baby.
Right. I guess it's more important to know that visually that the shotgun and the baby are sharing the same frame. There's other films where guns get pointed at kids, but they're not in the same frame. It's usually a shot reverse shot. This one is a full wide frame of a shotgun in a baby's face, and it's just such a wild image to see.
Screaming baby.
Screaming. The kid is in real life upset because he's not an actor.
And again, in this movie, the bad guys do very bad things because they are bad people, and this movie goes out of its way to show it to you.
Right. And so that's why you feel good when they get killed.
Yeah. Yep. And the more distressing thing is that you fully can anticipate that Lloyd Kaufman walked up to a woman and said, I will give you $20 if you let me put a shotgun in your baby's face. And she was like, sure. And I think that's what happened. Like that's probably what happened. It's bonkers.
So on the little bit of research I did into this scene, apparently the actor that was holding the shotgun quit after this because he was so distraught after having to point a shotgun at a child, even a prop shotgun.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah, I guess I understand.
Yeah.
That is what I am talking about. There's probably 4 or 5 instances of like stories I've heard regarding Lloyd Kaufman and like performers who left with a very bad taste in their mouth because of shit like that.
Yeah. I may be wrong about this, but I think the character you're talking about, who has the shotgun, when he meets his ultimate demise in the back of the shop, when he gets basically a sundae built on his face and his face stuck in the milkshake machine, I don't think it's the same actor even, because I think he maybe have quit before that.
Probably. So that timeline would line up. Also, now here's the thing, because you brought it up now. Most of the kills in this movie are combat kills.
Yeah.
That scene in the back of the Mexican restaurant, the two big kills there, both of those seem pretty sadistic. That was like some, hostile stuff going on back there.
Milkshake. And then you get
kind of hard to root for Toxie after you see how
well, he puts the one guy's hands in the fryer, right? He fries the one guy's hands.
And then the other guy, dude's head. Hey,
milkshakes his head.
2 out of the 3 movies we're doing tonight here involve somebody getting a blender to the head.
That's true too.
Strange coincidences here. This is kind of weird.
Well, and then the one guy gets put in the oven, but it's kind of off screen.
Oh yeah, this is definitely. I forgot about that. Thank you for bringing it up, Brian. Yeah. Feel a little bit weird about our hero putting people of color in ovens. Not good.
There is also a Nazi character at some point, but
he was a rapist, so it's okay.
But just the oven seems a little bit over the top.
It was a thing of opportunity.
Fair enough.
Well, the one character that character who gets put in the oven also gets his arm cut off, and he is a amputee in real life. And if you watch the scenes prior to that, and if you focus on the fake arm they have on him, it's hilarious to watch.
He's throwing nothing but left hooks, just all left hooks.
Yeah. When he's rubbing up on Sarah, he's caressing her with his left arm, and his right arm's doing nothing, because it's just, dangling there.
It's like a paper mache arm.
Yeah. Like he essentially sexually assaults a woman one-armed, and they hope you don't notice it.
I think the fight scene, it's more noticeable when he can only punch with one hand. I think that's what really sticks out.
Yeah, it's very quick that like Toxie goes for a judo throw and just rips his arm off, which is, that's a great bit. Come on.
It is. No complaints.
Yeah. But Toxie comes in, he's just like, he's a heat-seeking missile for evil. He finds evil when it's happening. He comes in, he rips off the one bad guy's arm, he throws the other guy into the kitchen, and then this is where Rico, who has just been like staring straight at the camera with a gun to a woman's head the whole time, and then kissing her at times. Rico's just hilarious.
Yeah.
He's hilarious because like he's just out of his mind, but then is also a karate master. And
he comes in doing fucking spin kicks, hurricane kicks, and all this wild shit.
Yeah. And this is the guy I wanted to talk about. His name's Mike Russo. And he also has like a really long career after this. Because I think
as a stunt guy, right? He was like a fight choreographer kind of guy after this, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I think to this day, he's still doing, like stunt and fight choreography. So like, hey, everybody gets their start somewhere. It's just less likely you're going to break if you start on a trauma movie, maybe.
Yeah. You're starting out with maybe a handcuff there, but
Yeah. But if you know the right people, they'll elevate you. In this scene, like these guys are total pieces of shit. They try to sexually assault a woman. They kill a dog. They put a gun in a baby's face. So I don't feel bad when Toxie takes his time being rather gross and disgusting and enjoying. That's the other thing is it's very obvious. Toxie enjoys killing people, especially. And I'm okay with it though, because they're bad people. They're bad guys.
Yeah.
It's not like
he just killed a dog.
He's never
just
wrong.
Pointed his shotgun at a baby. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And to your point, the movie makes it very clear that these are bad people doing bad things, and it's okay to feel good about them getting their comeuppance.
Yeah. And he's biologically never wrong. It's what his superpower is, at least part of it. He's never wrong about somebody being a bad guy. So you never have to feel. Yeah.
Yeah. You figured that out, right?
Yeah. So you never have to feel bad about it. But yeah, he just dispatches these guys. And then this is where we get our first start of the love story between Toxie and Sarah after he dispatches all these guys in gruesome fashions, blender to the head, hands in the deep fryer, throwing another guy in the oven. It's great.
Mm-hmm. And to your point about the connection with Stan Lee, very much like the relationship between The Thing, Ben Grimm, and Alicia Masters. Because his love interest is also blind, and he's also, quote unquote, a monster.
Yeah. Was she introduced? I mean, yeah, she had to have been, because the Fantastic Four is from the 60s. So she had to have been introduced at this point. I was just wondering if...
Because she's in the Corman, well, that wasn't until like the 90s. But
that was 94.
But she's in that too. But yeah, no, she was a reoccurring character. Yeah. Throughout the 60s. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I just wasn't sure. Did Stan Lee take Sarah from the Toxic Avenger as an homage to his friend Lloyd Kaufman? And Toxie, he gets a little bit of a love interest going, but he's still out there doing murders and saving the day. And he also starts doing actually like good deeds. Like he opens a lady's popcorn, and the popcorn is popped because he's full of radiation. I think that's the microwave joke there, is that he's also full of deadly radiation.
Right.
Yeah. And then a lot of the revenge scenes, though, they're okay, but they're not wonderful, with the exception of when he finally gets the bozo and slug.
Yeah.
Like when he goes after Julie, it is pretty much like a horror movie, because he's chasing her down. Yeah. Yeah. He's chasing her down like Freddy in a boiler room.
Well, and she's arguably the most purely evil one.
Yes.
Like she's the one who's literally like masturbating to pictures of a child she killed. Like that's about as sadistic as you can get. And that is what she's doing whenever he chases her down.
Well, no, that's the other one.
Isn't that Julie?
No, it's the girl in the sauna.
Yeah.
That's not Julie.
Julie's the straight blonde one. The other girl is in the sauna.
I'm getting those two mixed up, but yeah. Sorry.
Yeah, the other girl, he catches her in the sauna and he says, "Here, sit on this, hot ass," and puts her on top of the coals of the sauna. Yeah.
But isn't Julie's kill off screen?
It is off screen.
Yeah. Yes. Okay. I was just getting their names mixed up, but yeah, that was a little bit of a bummer.
Yeah.
I will say this. I feel like both the kills of the girlfriends seemed a bit darker in tone than the other revenge kills that were a little more slapsticky. And to your point, Brian, like the fact that they cut away from it just made it seem more sinister.
Yeah.
It's like, that was too much for us to see. We've seen a lot already. Now you're saying we can't see that? Oh my.
Yeah. They both kind of happen off screen, and maybe they just weren't planned out well enough or something like that. But like, it's not the same slapstick gimmicky stuff we get when Toxie's stopping crimes.
He's hand slapping somebody's dick or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's funny. And now this is like, it's not as lighthearted.
Yeah, it's not as lighthearted, but it's more personal. But also, you want to see, we've already established that these are some of the most evil people in the movie. Right. So you wanted to see it happen.
Yeah.
But the scene, which is probably, the most money and the pièce de resistance of the film, aside from the tank, is when Toxie finally catches up to Slug and Bobo. He has them just in a car and he throws Slug out, and then you just get this wild stunt ride through like a factory industrial park. Right. I think it is. It's just,
I feel like I've seen that setting in other movies too. Like that is just that industrial area has seen a lot of car crashes and chases. Like I've seen that space before.
Right. Yeah, it for sure has happened in plenty of other films in the 70s and 80s because they're like, we have this little part of, New York that you can rent out. There's no businesses down here, so feel free to wreck your cars and have explosions if you want.
Yeah, right.
And that's what they do. They wreck their cars and they have explosions. And the one part of this that I don't love is that in the end, Toxie rips the wheel off the car and gives it to Bozo, which is a funny gag. But also they're imperiling children as they run the car. And I was like, but Toxie wouldn't do that. Toxie wouldn't imperil, innocence to get his revenge.
Yeah.
But in the end, it's even better though, because he's laughing as the car goes off the cliff. Like, that's the funniest shit in the world. Laughing as you kill somebody. He's like,
well, and is that
he
that's
enjoys
the
it
one
way
too,
too much.
When the car goes off the cliff, and I think it's the same scene, there's like appears to be pedestrians not that far away.
Right.
Like that don't feel like they're part of the shoot. And I was just like, Jesus Christ. Like, I feel like that was too close to people who weren't part of this movie. I don't know. It's just hard to tell. Yeah.
Yeah. And this whole chase to me felt like the Black Mirror version of the mall scene in Blues Brothers.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm like, oh my gosh. This is a little more scary and treacherous than fun. And
somebody almost died in one of those scenes too, because I remember watching on, it was a YouTube video or something, but I remember somebody saying that there's somewhere in the scene, one of the cars flips over and there was apparently a hastily installed roll cage on that car. And the roof did collapse and almost killed one of the stunt drivers.
Oh yeah.
I think I read that too.
You can definitely see the roof collapse on the car.
Yeah, it goes flat.
When it rolls
over and it's flat. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, you can definitely see the roof collapse. And there's a whole bunch of stunts in this film or in this sequence because on top of, the car collapsing and rolling over, there's a whole bunch of Buster Keaton stunts of people falling off ladders and stuff as the car drives through it, or a roof coming down on people and they jump out of the way. Yeah. So they're obviously putting their all into this scene. And it does have a satisfying end with, jumping off the cliff and just, plowing a car into, like Brian said, nearby pedestrians who may or may not be in on it.
Yeah. Felt like they weren't part of the shoot, but I don't know. Who knows?
But yeah, car explodes and then Toxie gets out and just shakes it off. Yeah, there's definitely a guy as the car goes over the cliff that's just running out of the way.
Yeah, again, I don't think he was part of it. I don't think he was.
I bet he was part of the crew and he didn't know he was on camera.
Yeah, he was just running. Standing there eating a sandwich. Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, Toxie, does a little jig as he gets away. But, with basically all of the crime cleaned up in the city, surely Toxie won't go after anybody else, but this is where you get the thing of he kills a lady, he just randomly kills a lady in a laundromat. And everybody goes, oh, the monster hero, he's turned out bad. He's gone bad now. We have to stop him. And then they try to stop him. And they try to do it with the National Guard. But it turns out that lady, she was in the white slavery. So he was right.
Yeah. She was a little person. He put her in the dryer. It felt pretty sadistic. And then it was it turns out she was bad. So he was right for doing that.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Toxie's always right.
Yeah.
He's basically Captain America of the trauma universe. He is the moral compass.
Yes. Yes. He's all things Marvel in one character. He's funny like Peter Parker, and he does bits, and he's strong like the Thing, and
he's goofy like Deadpool. But no, seriously, I mentioned this in our pre-discussions, but could this possibly be the first R-rated superhero movie?
Yeah, I mean, I think it has to be. I can't think. There's not another one that's on my mind unless it's a sex romp superhero film.
I mean, there might be some kind of weird, caveat there, but but no, seriously, because he is basically a superhero. He gets an origin story similar to Daredevil. with a power set similar to the Hulk or the Thing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and he's got the former alter ego like Spider-Man.
Yeah.
It's interesting to look at this. And again, so I can see this inspiring some of the other R-rated superhero movies, but also I got to say this, does this not also have some like DNA shared with RoboCop with the way the villains are portrayed? And like,
the hyper violence and like the real insistence on making them seem so overtly evil. Yeah.
Yeah.
I just, because I couldn't put my finger on it before, but watching this last time, it finally dawned on me. I'm like, oh, I got it. I'm getting RoboCop vibes. You got these scummy bad guys and corrupt, officials and whatnot. And you've got a hero that's got a moral compass and is hyper violent. I'm like, okay, I bet Paul Verhoeven might have seen this movie.
Sure. Of course he has. Of course he has. And then he made it better because, fucking RoboCop is a perfect film, literally up and down. So,
Thank you. I've been in fights with T-dubs on that point, and I do think RoboCop is a perfect movie.
He's wrong. So, but yeah, you get the eventually the mayor tries to come after Toxic, and he tries to come after him with the police force and the National Guard. And, this is their other budget rollout where they have a tank, come up on a camp, as Toxic and Sarah go on a little bit of a vacation to cool down, they roll up on a tank, pointed at the tent. And it's a funny visual, but it's all gags and goof 'em ups. And the real heroes are the townspeople, just like in Spider-Man 2. They come to Toxic's rescue. They say, keep your hands off him, Dr. Octopus. And Toxic says, don't worry, children. And then he saves the day and he punches the guy in the tummy.
And rips his guts out, too.
Yeah.
It's pretty brutal. And then they're like, oh, man, you ripped the mayor's guts out. Yay!
Hooray!
You saved the day.
I like how nobody said, yo, brother, it's manslaughter.
That's a bit much.
At least he doesn't jump rope with the guts, though. That comes later.
Right. Yeah. Yes. That's later films.
Yeah. The only thing that really I forgot about this movie, and not that the plot is tremendously sensical in this movie, that makes a lot of sense, but first time I noticed it this time around. How does Sarah not know at this point that he is, the hero, the monster hero? Like when he finally tells her, hey, I'm the monster hero they're looking for. We got to get out of here and blah, blah, blah. I understand she's blind, but she's not deaf, and she obviously exists in the world. So how does she not suspect or know that he is that as well? Like, this is the first time that's like it comes as a surprise to her when he tells her.
Yeah. I mean,
I know that's such a dumb little part, but I'm just like, why couldn't she have just been like, of course I knew all along, and I support you and blah, blah, blah. Why did it have to be like she was surprised? It's just so dumb.
Because
there's 100 dumber things that happen. I get it, but
maybe because they filmed that scene before they filmed the restaurant scene, and they didn't think about the fact how Toxic literally saves her.
He literally does the thing he does in the entire movie to her, and that's how they meet.
Right.
But she's not sure who he is in that scene. She doesn't know who is helping her up. She might think he's just a police officer or something. She doesn't know that he did everything because she couldn't witness it.
At
this point, I like to point out that, hey, kid, if they're looking at your hair, we're all in a lot of trouble. Like, it's not that kind of movie,
Yeah, I get it. There's a lot.
But that's the whole point. To your point, Brian, is that yes, they use her blindness as an excuse to give her plausible deniability throughout the film.
Right.
Of everything.
Like
she's blind.
Blanket plausible deniability.
Yeah. She is just like a completely ignorant, like automaton who has no agency whatsoever because
she loves that Toxic dick though. That's clear.
That's the thing. It's like they literally live together in a tent. Before that they were living, and they're just porking and like literally living together, and she's not aware
so
that
here is my nitpick on this, okay? Because you brought up the living situation, and I think there's something there. She's got her own apartment, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Why would they settle in the dump? Why wouldn't Toxie move into the apartment?
Because he likes the dump, and he's
a
celebrity. He can't be seen. The paparazzi.
But that's what he's got the trench coat and stuff. I just that's the. But to your point about her, why is she oblivious? How could she not be aware that she lives in a toxic waste dump? To me, that would be easier to decipher than that he was the Toxic Avenger. Right? It's like, hey, why do we live in a fucking garbage? It smells like farts and Starburst here all the time. Where are we living? Like, I had a nice apartment and a real bed and a kitchen, and now we live in fucking Shrek's swamp. What are we doing?
Well,
she still can go to bed in her own apartment. Toxie even says, "Hey, Sarah, maybe you should go to your apartment for a while." You know, she still has her apartment. They're not living together in sin.
Well, let's. I know we're really nitpicking stuff that's happening here, but also they're porking constantly. And before, I watched him pop popcorn kernels by touching them, just the outside of the jar. So how is she not covered in chemical burns all the time?
And she made his dick smoke.
Yeah.
So this goes back to the old Man of Steel, Woman of Kleenex problem. Right?
Well, I think also, like, we may be applying too rigorous of considerations here, where I don't even think the people who wrote the movie thought half as hard about it.
Yeah, we had to wait till Mallrats for that to come up.
Yeah, they thought it was funny. They thought it was funny that his dick shot smoke when she fucked. Yeah.
Oh my.
All they were caring about is that she made eggs like a motherfucker, because they thought it was funny that he ate so many eggs.
But she didn't, though. She just put all the shells in. She's blind. She can feel shells. Why is she throwing all the shells?
And that gag doesn't pay off, because then when they cut to him eating the fried eggs, it's literally just a plate of fried eggs. I didn't see any shells.
Well, you don't see the shells, but it doesn't mean he's not eating them. And also, he's a toxic waste monster, so
why
of course
would
he would love the shells. Yes.
Yeah, right. You wouldn't give a shit.
Just pop the whole egg in your mouth and just eat it like an M&M. You're a toxic waste monster. What are you worried about getting salmonella? Come on.
He should technically be able to cook the eggs himself inside his mouth, but I don't know.
That's true. All the logistics arguments aside, that really summarizes my thoughts on this movie. I like this movie. It's very entertaining. It's a bad movie, through and through. Everything about it's bad, but it's funny and it's wild and it's entertaining, and it's, and that's what Troma is. Troma, I don't know if I could point to any movie by Troma where I'm like, honestly, Troma's War is the only one I can think of where I was like, wow, they actually did some really good stuff in that movie. I mean, it still was not good, but they make not good movies that are fun to watch.
Yeah. They make their imagination, and they make their imagination happen on a shoestring. It's the thing we talk about when we talk about, like, Carousel. Like, Carousel, I don't think Steve could fucking sell as, a Hollywood film. Like, he couldn't make people sit for an hour and a half, and come out in droves to watch a horse that doesn't animate.
Right.
Just a horse, its lips doesn't move or anything like that. But that's the magic of it, is like, you write in a story that is entertaining, and it also has like a little bit of heart to it. Like, maybe Toxic Avenger doesn't have the best like love story to it, but it has a love story, and it's about accepting somebody, and it's about two people accepting each other despite their differences, and you get little flashes of things that are lovely in all of the grime and the slime and the racism and the disgusting portrayals of people.
And the shotguns pointed at babies. And
it's about love,
dog killing,
overcoming bigotry and fascism.
Right. And it's about a town coming together as a community to take down all the goddamn corruption in their town.
Yeah.
Goddamn hoagie eating mayors and
bunch of hoagie eating mayors hanging
out the health club eating hoagies like fat cats.
Yeah. So, you get the basic things out of the film, as well as a bunch of silly bits. Doing bits, guys. Come on. Bits are awesome.
We're out here doing bits.
Cigar Face, great bad guy.
Yeah, Cigar Face. How much do you love that he's smoking a cigar and then he goes, you're going to learn why they call me Cigar Face. And it's like, oh, it's not because you're smoking a cigar. Oh, it's because you put cigars out on people's faces.
I mean, this is definitely like a Batman movie, right? Like that's the kind of villains we're dealing with here. Like serial, film Batman from like, the 40s.
I mean, Batman or even farther, Dick Tracy.
Yeah,
I was going to say Dick Tracy. Yeah.
Exactly.
Because that's what the enclave of like all the bad guys together. That's a Dick Tracy scene. All the bad guys are like, what are we gonna do about this Toxic Avenger guy? Yeah.
Except for they don't have the practical effects to make flat top and prune face and all that. So it's just like hoagie guy.
It's just a fat guy with a hoagie and then a couple old guys who look kind of weird.
Cigar smoker, hoagie eater.
Yeah. Guys with face paint.
Yeah.
But that's the Toxic Avenger. Toxic Avenger rules. He gets revenge on the people who hurt him, but also gets revenge for planet Earth and gets revenge for the people of Tromaville. That's a lot of revenge. It's 3-tiered. It's amazing.
3-tiered revenge.
You could even argue this inspired Captain Planet, right? He's just the PG Toxic Avenger.
Yep.
It did have its own animated children's series, which was good, and I have some toys from it back in the day. Like I did genuinely enjoy. I will tell you this, and not to believe this anymore, but as a kid who was growing up when that show came on, so many shows back then. My kids always are like, I want to watch, stuff that you watched when you were a kid. And as nostalgic as I am for that stuff, and as as many fucking Ninja Turtles that I'm looking at right now in my office, like most shows back then when I was a kid sucked, and they don't compare to the shows that are on now. There's so much better stuff on now. But the Toxic Avenger animated kids series was so much better than it had to be. Like they actually put a lot of work into that, and it wasn't just like farmed out same dumb animation cells, and they actually put a lot of work and creativity into that series, and it was better than 99% of the children's animated series of the 90s and 80s.
That's why it still has like the power it does today, because they just made a 4K remaster of the show that you can get, and they have the computer game coming out the next year. Yeah.
It's so much funnier and well written and well animated than like 95% of other shit.
Yeah.
Now, it's no Inhumanoids, but what I will say is that this is evidence of a trend that has ceased in this country, and evidence of the fact that we are no longer a proper country, because God damn it, in the 80s and the 90s, people were brave enough to take an R-rated film property and turn it into a children's cartoon and toy line. And the cowards in Hollywood won't do that anymore. And you know what? We're worse off because of it.
We used to have real toys like RoboCop and Rambo and Aliens.
Rambo, yeah. You could get a realistic machine gun, a Uzi squirt gun made by LGN that looked like a real gun and made noises and squirted water. It was battery powered. Like we armed our children in the 80s. Yeah. Now they're just all pussies with Nerf guns.
Now all the frogs are gay. They smell like sulfur.
Frogs are gay and they smell like sulfur, but not the Battletoads. That's totally different.
In 1979, the movie Alien was released, and Kenner released a 12-foot tall alien toy for kids. This wasn't a collector's toy in that special segment, section that your Target or your Walmart. It was just straight up in a kids commercial, like, "Hey, play with this cool toy from an R-rated movie that you can't see."
Yeah.
Who should design kids' toys? H.R. Giger. Let's design children's toys.
Hey kids, don't you love weird Polish art?
and giant aliens with giant penis heads. Yeah, come on. No, seriously though, it's so weird to think about that now. But those R-rated properties were so marketed to kids back then.
Well, they had a freaking. I mean, now this show genuinely sucked. I want it to be good, but every time I go back and revisit it, it was terrible. But the Tales from the Crypt animated series is not good, But it has a couple of enjoyable parts. And I had a tape of, I don't know if you guys remember, 2XL, the smartest toy robot in the world. He is basically the robot version of Teddy Ruxpin. And you put a tape in it and you play it, and it has buttons on it. And it's like a choose your own adventure book, but it's on tape. It's on a cassette tape in it. Right. I had that as a kid. I still have it. It's around here somewhere. But I have a Tales from the Crypt tape for that. They literally made essentially a Tales from the Crypt Teddy Ruxpin tape to put in your 2XL. And like, I mean, if anybody's seen that, like, those are some of the most mean-spirited, like, TV show episodes ever made.
Yeah, no,
but
it's
wild.
The young folks are missing out today. You're
missing out on your violence and your sexual assault, and boy howdy. All right. So that leaves us with one more flick. If you're new and you want to follow us over on them social medias, go over to @HalloweenIsForever on Instagram, @HallowForever on Twitter, whatever the hell. Just go search Halloween is Forever. You'll see it's a little pixelated, cute little pumpkin guy on there. Follow us if you want some dang old spooky ooky shit on the internet every damn day. If you want to join some of our patrons who join us regularly here on the Discord during recording, if you want to get episodes occasionally a little bit earlier, if you want to get access to those 31 days of horror that Steve did all those fantastic write-ups for, or if you want to get access to our monthly Patreon exclusive podcast, go over on the Patreon. It's patreon.com/Halloween's Forever.
About Bob, how about you tell everybody where they can find you?
You can find our podcast, Hops and Box Office Flops, anywhere you can download the finest podcast. And check us out on Twitter at HOBF. I think that's what it is. Hold on. What is our Twitter? Yeah, that sounds right. Just look it up. This is usually T-Dub's job. But you can find all of us on Twitter. Captain Cash, Bling Blake, the Thunderous Wizard, and of course, our dear friend, the Sleepy Bear, Mary McCheese. But yeah, it's a fun podcast. We talk about bad movies and usually good beer. And we drop new episodes every Friday. So Hops and Box Office Flops, check us out.
That's Hops and BO Flops, if for the @
Yeah.
There it is.
Continued in part 3.